Nobody warns you that trying to be a good person can become one of the most dangerous things you do. Not because kindness is dangerous, morality is false, or cruelty is somehow more authentic. The danger begins when goodness stops being a choice and becomes an identity you must protect at any cost. The moment you need to believe that you are the patient one, the forgiving one, the reasonable one, the person who never hates, never envies, never wants revenge, and never thinks ugly thoughts, everything that contradicts this image has to go somewhere. Carl Jung called the rejected side of the personality the shadow. The shadow contains qualities, impulses, emotions, and desires the conscious personality refuses to recognize as its own. People usually imagine this as something obviously dark: rage, greed, cruelty, forbidden desire. But the shadow is often created by much more respectable ambitions. A person decides that they must be good, useful, loving, calm, mature, spiritual, or selfless, and gradually pushes every contradictory feeling outside conscious awareness. At first, this can look exactly like virtue. You tolerate what others would confront. Jung believed that the psyche tends toward balance. When the conscious personality becomes extremely one-sided, the unconscious often produces the opposite. The person who insists that they are always loving may be haunted by violent fantasies. The person who prides themselves on being rational, they secretly become controlled by irrational fears. Someone who never permits selfishness may develop enormous resentment toward everyone who needs them. Someone who refuses to admit envy may become obsessed with finding flaws in successful people. The more rigidly a person says, "I am not that," the more energy the rejected quality can gather in the shadow. This is why the nicest person in the room is not necessarily the least angry. Sometimes they are simply the person least capable of admitting anger. The most forgiving person is not necessarily free of resentment. Forgiveness may have become a performance that allows them to avoid conflict. The most humble person is not always free of ambition. Sometimes ambition has been buried so deeply that it returns as bitterness toward anyone who dares to succeed. The problem is not goodness itself. This is one reason Jung placed so much importance on projection. What you cannot tolerate in yourself is often much easier to see in another person. The selfish person enrages you. The arrogant person disgusts you. The loud person is unbearable. The ambitious person seems shallow. The angry person appears primitive. Perhaps some of these judgments are accurate. Jung was not suggesting that every criticism is imaginary. The important detail is the amount of emotional energy attached to a particular quality. The good person is often strangely fascinated by the person they consider bad. They watch them, discuss them, judge them, analyze them, and return to them repeatedly. There is disgust, but there is also energy. The selfish person does something the good person never permits themselves to do. They choose themselves. The arrogant person occupies space the good person has spent a lifetime surrendering. The angry person speaks with a force the good person learned to suppress. The ambitious person openly admits a hunger the good person has renamed vanity. None of this means you should become selfish, arrogant, violent, or cruel. It means that the intensity of judgment may contain information. The shadow often carries distorted versions of qualities you. The moral problem becomes serious when a person is capable of cruelty precisely because they are deeply invested in believing themselves incapable of cruelty. They do not monitor aggressive impulses because aggression belongs to bad people and they are good. They do not take responsibility for a desire to punish because punishment does not fit the identity. Aggression therefore finds indirect roots. Sarcasm becomes honesty, humiliation becomes advice, silence becomes peace, control becomes concern, superiority becomes morality. Some of the harshest the people sincerely believe they are simply telling difficult truths. Some of the most controlling people believe they are protecting everyone around them. Some deeply resentful people constantly describe themselves through sacrifice. The shadow is especially powerful when it learns to act through a virtue, because the conscious personality will defend the behavior instead of examining it. A person can punish a partner for days and call it needing space. They can make an adult child dependent and call it love. They can constantly criticize friends and call it honesty. They can destroy another person's confidence while remaining convinced that they only want what is best for them. Good intentions become a shield, protecting unconscious motives from examination. Jung, this explains why some apparently good people develop intense fantasies of escape. They imagine leaving the marriage, abandoning the job, moving to another country, turning off the phone, disappearing from the family, and living somewhere nobody knows their name. Immediately afterward, they feel ashamed. Their conscious identity interprets the fantasy as proof that something terrible exists inside them. But the fantasy may not mean that they truly want to destroy everything. It may mean that some part of the personality is desperate for a life in which goodness is no longer defined as permanent availability. The unconscious often uses extreme language when subtle messages have been ignored for years. Burn everything down may mean stop agreeing automatically. I hate everyone may mean I have had no meaningful time alone. I want revenge may mean I need to admit that what happened actually hurt me. I don't care anymore may mean I cared without protection for too long. I want to disappear may mean there is no place in my current life where I can exist without performing a role. The task is not to obey the extreme message. The task is to translate it. Jung's larger idea of individuation was concerned with becoming a more whole person rather than a... For many people, this work begins with anger, because anger is one of the most commonly rejected emotions in those who build an identity around being good. Think about the last person who produced genuine resentment in you and identify the sentence you wanted to say but did not allow yourself to say. The honest sentence may be ugly. It may be that you are tired of their demands, that you do not want to forgive yet, that something still hurts, that you want something for yourself, or that you simply no longer want the role you have been performing. The important part is recognizing which image of yourself would be threatened by saying the sentence honestly. Perhaps it is the good mother, the loyal friend, the understanding partner, the mature sibling, the spiritual person, or the one who never causes trouble. There is the persona, and behind it there may be a living part of the personality waiting to be admitted back into conscious life. You do not need to destroy the persona. A functioning social identity is necessary. You need to stop confusing it with the whole self. It is possible to... Jung did not ask people to become pure. His psychology was much more interested in whether a person could become whole enough to carry contradiction consciously. The shadow is not defeated by repeatedly declaring yourself good. It does not disappear through politeness, affirmations, spiritual language, or moral superiority. Its power begins to change when an unacceptable part of the personality can finally be recognized as part of the same person. The honest position is not to give the shadow control. It is to acknowledge that it belongs to you, understand what it carries, and accept responsibility for how its energy enters your life. Real responsibility begins when you no longer need every bad motive to belong to someone else. The next time you feel unusually righteous, unusually offended, or unusually fascinated by another person's flaws, there may be value in waiting before deciding that the entire truth exists outside you. The reaction may contain anger that has never been given language, desire you consider unacceptable, ambition you have disguised as humility, or a boundary you have been too frightened to defend. The same is true when goodness repeatedly leaves you exhausted. Genuine kindness can require effort and sacrifice, but a moral identity